Hi, I'm Rosie Grummert. Super excited to share with you tonight about how to boost some of your healthy foods and some healthy food ideas, boosting those things nutritionally and flavor-wise with essential oils. Welcome to my kitchen. This is my family left for the night so that they wouldn't be walking in and making noise, so that's fun. I have some specific recipes that I'm going to cover tonight, and I'm also going to talk about how you can even know which essential oils to use in your foods. And I want you to know this is a 3-part series. So tonight is the first night, and then there'll be part 2 and part 3. Now, if you're joining in live, then that's Thursday evenings at 8 p.m. Mountain, or if you're catching the recording, you can just look for that to show up on our YouTube channel, eoLIFE Education, right? So let me share my screen, which of course will make my video a little bit smaller. So there will be sometimes where I screen share and sometimes where I come back off of that again. And just a second. The Zoom window is always right in front of where you're trying to get things to get going. So like I already said, tonight we are talking about boosting healthy foods with essential oils. If we don't know each other yet, I have been using essential oils since 1985. This is when I first traveled over to Europe with my family and I got my hands on my first oils. And I have to tell you, they literally changed my life. Those ones that I even got my hands on way back then, I was stunned at how, for example, one blend that I got helped me so much with focus and alertness, right? So fast forward, I've done a lot of study. I attended Bastyr University in Washington State. I love the geeky science stuff behind things. And I also have been a little bit of what my own adult kids call like a hippie. Like we spent 23 years, I think it was, heating with wood. Now granted, we did have some what you might call little squirrel cage electric heaters in the bedrooms, but we tried to not ever use those because one, they're so expensive and they just weren't very effective either, right? We've gardened for 30 some plus years, had chickens. At one time or another, we've had a couple of steer for beef and turkeys and a sheep and just, did I say rabbits? I can't even remember. We've probably had more animals than not. And I've grown and tried to grow all kinds of things and always am trying to eat as well as I can. Can, dehydrate, preserve food, just the whole 9 yards, right? And so I'm super passionate about the food we eat and the cycles of food and what a difference that makes on our emotional and our physical wellness. So starting there, this is not about a specific diet or a specific eating type. I'm not one to be a strong advocate of like a specific eating style, like you must be this or you must be that. So if you're looking for that, this is not the place to be, because I'm going to talk about several things that we do to just get higher volumes of healthy food into our life. And it may be that for you personally, you're like, oh, but I can't have that many carbs, or I need to have more fat or less fat, and that's okay. Just take what it is I'm sharing that can be useful for you. And my goal is I want to make sure that you know how to use essential oils safely in with your foods. Scoot forward here. Okay, so first of all, one of the fastest ways you can figure out if an essential oil is safe for you to use in your food is if it has a supplements facts label on there. So I have essential oils right here next to my cooktop, right? These are ones that I reach for all the time. We don't have them in a super fancy holder. This is just, I think it's a little tray that's meant for sushi, right? It's kind of like a big coaster. And all the ones that are on here, just like that picture, they have that supplement facts label on there. This happens to be cassia. And so one of the things for you to pay attention to is to have your essential oils where you can use them. A little bit later on, I talk about doing smoothies. And on that side of our kitchen over there, we've got like a little alcove. That's where our blender is. I've got a cupboard up there that actually has different like superfood powders that we can add into our smoothies. And it's also where I have some essential oils that I always use for smoothies. So I've got oils over there just for smoothies too. If you go and look at doTERRA's digital catalog, or even if you have a paper one, you will see these little symbols next to every single essential oil. So you can either just look at the bottle, because if you picked up, for example, Deep Blue blend, which is not meant to be used internally, you won't see supplement facts written on the bottle. What you'll see instead is the word ingredients. So supplement facts means supplement, you can use it internally. Ingredients means it's a blend for topical and aromatic use. All right, this is one of my favorite things to do with essential oils, and it's honestly a place where almost anybody can learn to love different protein balls or nut balls, right? You can also take the recipe and like make it flat in like a 9x13, maybe put some parchment paper on the bottom and then cut it into squares, and people will think they're having like a brownie or a cookie, right? So I don't want to say it's a way that you can trick people into eating raw foods, but it kind of is, right? So this is a more recent one that I've made up, and I actually decided it was going to be a good idea to have you guys be able to see what it looks like. So let me stop the share for a minute, and feel free, you can take a picture of this recipe so you can make it up, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. So it says in there that it should be dry, but still like it would ball up, right? Like you want it to have it be a little bit dry, but you still want it to be that, like, when I pinch it, see how it holds together when I pinch it? Because this isn't baked or anything after this. It's just, you take it into, I used one of these little cookie scoopers, and I just will press it into the cookie scooper and then put it out onto my hand. I know it's kind of hard to see, and then just make it into a ball. And then I just roll the ball in some coconut. So when we're going to go back to the recipe, when you're looking at the recipe, I really like this one because you can use what you have on hand. So more and more we're finding that it can be a little bit harder to get organic, natural ingredients. It depends on where you live. Many people I know, they're getting things out of, they're getting them on Amazon. Oh, my coconut was left out for a little bit too long as I was prepping for you guys, so it's kind of dry, which is okay. If I wanted these balls to be a little bit moister, they're really forgiving. Like if I wanted stuff to stick more on the outside, I could just add a little bit more of the nut butter, and then they would. So let's go back to this share so we can talk about the ingredients, and hopefully I can give you a little bit more confidence on how you can make this your own. So what you want to do is pay attention to the amount of dry ingredients that you've got compared to the things that are moist, right? Just so that you end up with the right texture, something that'll hold together, it doesn't crumble apart, but it's not so sticky that people don't even, see, this doesn't even have to be rolled in coconut. Can you guys see how it's not even sticking on my fingers? It's like the perfect consistency. So you can take a half cup of any mixed seeds at all, anything that you have at home that's your favorite. And that half a cup of almonds, maybe you're like, I'm allergic to almonds, or I don't like almonds. Well, then you could use cashews, you could use pistachios, you can use a different nut, right? And then the nut butter, the one I used for this is actually a blended nut butter. It had some sunflower, almond, and some peanut. And so again, you can use what you have on hand, right? And if you don't have hemp protein, then that's okay. Maybe you've got some chia seeds, or maybe you've got something else in your fridge that you just want to be able to use up, right? Some flax seeds or something, then you could put that in instead. Or if you decide to omit it, then just know that you might be adding in another little bit of sesame seed or sunflower seed, for example, to make it so that the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients balances out. In this recipe, you put everything all together in a food processor or in your high-speed blender. It does end up being pretty thick. And so I have a Blendtec, and I find that what I'll do is I'll press the pulse button, until I can tell it's not catching anything and blending anymore, and then I just go ahead and let it stop. I scrape the sides down and do it again, and it only takes maybe 4 or 5 blends like that. Now, I've only had a blend tech for, I was thinking about it, I think it's about 7 years. I did have a food processor before then, but I was, like clean the food processor, like it just sounded like so much work sometimes, right? So just know there's always ways to do things. Like genuinely, you can have a podcast on and you can decide that you're gonna chop up your nuts with a knife, right? You don't have to have a fancy blender or a food processor to do this. I also have a nut grinder that I bought years and years ago. It kind of looks like a hourglass. I should have gotten it out to show you guys. And you just turn a little crank on the side and it will grind about a half a cup of nuts at a time. And at Thanksgiving, actually, my kids always were so excited always to make the apple cake that we would make for dessert, because they knew that they got to do the nut grinder, right? And it made for time for all of us in the kitchen. So don't worry if you don't have a fancy blender, you can still make this. So when you go to add your essential oils into this, what I like to do is put the dry things in, and I put my nut butter on the top of the pile inside my blender. And then I actually drop my cardamom and my wild orange right on top of that little pile of the wet ingredients, right? To help it, when it blends up, to get integrated all the way in. And so these are delicious, you guys, and you'll thank me if you make them. I can't wait to hear. So the next thing that I want to talk about is something that we do all the time, saves us, saves us, saves us. And this is smoothie bags. I love being able to have a green smoothie, and I love being able to have, it's like having multiple servings of fruits and vegetables just in my body all at once. And this is one of my favorite things to boost with essential oils. So I take quart bags. I actually now have some silicone bags, so I'm just like reusing plastic bags all the time. But you can certainly just start with some quart size freezer bags, right? And I usually fill it between 1/3 to halfway with some greens. I literally just grab handfuls and put them in. I have a rectangle cake pan that was my mom or my grandma's. It's an old metal cake pan. And I stand my freezer bags up in there and I make about 10 at a time. So I'll get a couple of cartons of the organic, big greens, and I put in 3 to 4 handfuls and pack them down. And then do 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fresh or frozen fruit. Now I choose to do frozen because I'm putting these all in the freezer anyway. And that's how I can get some really good high quality organic fruit into my freezer bags no matter what time of the year it is, right? But if it's something that I have straight from my garden, then I'll put that in. You can pay attention to what your flavor profile is that you really love. Or maybe you're like, I really want to go for low glycemic, and so you stick with having berries. Like, that's totally up to you. And you also can add in any superfood powders that you have. Like, I'm currently putting wild blueberry powder into my smoothies and some spirulina into my smoothies, right? You can add those in right now. You can always add a date or 2 also. Make sure it's pitted, right? If you need a little bit of more natural sweetness. And you can add the essential oils in. It's a question I get all the time. You can drip them right in on the fruit right now if you want to, because it's okay if they're in the freezer. What you don't want to do with essential oils is heat them too much. And we'll talk about that in one of our other times together, right? So I take all of this and I'll squish the air out of the bag and seal it and put a date on it and put it in the freezer. And then when it's time for me to make them up, it's really easy. I just put 16 to 20 ounces of water into the bottom of my blender, and I'll kind of crunch up the bag a little bit and dump it in. I tend to like a flavorful smoothie. I tell people all the time, this will make it so you won't feel like you have that taste of mowing the lawn when you're having a green smoothie, right? I like to put in, for example, like 3 drops of wild orange and like 2 of cassia. That's one of my favorite things to put into a green smoothie. Ginger is really nice too in a green smoothie. Oh, I actually had a slide for this. These are examples of things that I use all the time. Now, word to the wise, if you do want to put cilantro oil into your green smoothies, I don't recommend putting a whole drop into the bag. and then freezing it that way. Our cilantro oil is so potent, which is, it's a great health boost. It's really good for helping support detox, helping your body to shake out some heavy metals, but it's so potent you might not want to have your smoothie. So this is a situation where what you're going to do is you're going to get a toothpick. This is actually celery seed oil. This can be another really great health booster, but you might not love the flavor if you got too much of it. So you're going to go ahead and get a toothpick, and if I'm going to put cilantro into a smoothie, then I've already put in the water, I've put the stuff in, and I've maybe even blended it once, right? And then I'm going to take my toothpick and I'm going to go ahead and see that little hole. It's called the orifice reducer. Should I stop my share for a quick second? Just so you guys can see it. There's that orifice reducer, and you're going to go ahead and just dip it down into the oil, and you'd get some of the cilantro on the toothpick, because otherwise you're going to have too strong a flavor in your smoothie. And then you would just swirl that in, give it a quick blend, and you can taste it and make sure it's not too strong. So that's something that a lot of times we'll do, like with oregano and salad dressings, because again, it's so potent too, is that little toothpick trick. So let me go back to the slideshow really quick. So again, any of these slides, you can go ahead and take a picture of them, but these are some of my favorites to put into smoothies. And the great thing about this is, like, truly, I can then have, you know, a 45-second smoothie. I grab the bag out of the freezer, I smash it up a little bit, put some water in the blender, dump the things in, add whatever oils I want, hit blend, and I've got a smoothie. And it's usually enough for me to have some in the morning and then put the rest in the fridge and have some more in the afternoon when that slump happens. All right, let's go to the next thing. All right, this is one of my favorite things, is using essential oils to boost your oils. Now, I mean like your cooking oils. So these are examples that, I mean, this isn't my picture, but these are some beautiful examples. This is what real life looks like. I just have a 4-ounce glass jar. And when I mixed this up, this was a really nice organic coconut and sunflower oil blend, right, that I just bought at the store. It's an organic oil that we use for cooking. And I added 10 drops of wild orange to it, because we have a yummy rice dish that we like to make that's got some currants and some dates and some nuts and a nice brown rice, and then you cook it lightly, like the rice is already cooked, and you cook it lightly with this orange cooking oil, and it's like having dessert, but it's whole grains and nuts and healthy for you. So that, the first step is, like, what is it that you might be buying at the store anyway? Or what is it that you find yourself adding to your cooking all the time anyway? The other thing we love is Italian. We love Italian food. And so I don't have any made up right now, but you can also get a container, or you can get a beautiful glass jar like what you see in the picture, and you can add in your essential oils and pre-make up a cooking oil that would cost you 4 or 5 times as much if you were to go to the store and to get it. So another one of my favorites is to use oregano, and put like 4 drops of oregano in this size of a container, and like 1 drop of basil, because it's very strong, and a drop of thyme, and make a nice Italian blend. Marjoram, a drop or 2 of marjoram in there too, can be really nice as well. And then if you want to, you could put a couple cloves of garlic in there as well, but just know that your garlic, anything that you put in there that's alive, like these pictures of the different herbs, you just want to make sure you use it up more quickly and don't have the herbs come up out of the top of the oil. That's where they'll start to have problems with spoilage, right? So that's another great thing to do. And you can do the same thing with vinegars. There's no reason to go buy like expensive rosemary vinegar. You can get a cute container, put some nice vinegar in it, add a drop or 2 of rosemary, taste it, see if it's too strong or if you like it. And then you can use it for doing salad dressings and all kinds of things like that. This is another thing that I use my oils for all the time so that I can cook healthy and have things just really easy and ready for me to do. And I have used essential oils in this kind of a thing too. So I grow a number of things like right outside the back door. Some rosemary, some basil, some thyme. I've got some cilantro out the other door. I'm trying to think what other, some chives, things like that that are just like herbs that we cook with all the time. But this time of the year, oh, parsley, right? This time of the year, all those things are needing to be harvested. And so you can wash them, cut them into little pieces, and you can either add them to water, or some people add them to butter if you're someone that cooks with butter. And then you can take a look at your essential oils and you can give them just a little bit more punch too, right? So if I'm doing my rosemary herbs, for example, then I can also add some rosemary. And again, I would add rosemary to a larger amount. If I was doing butter, then I would melt the butter, I'd put the rosemary essential oil in that, make sure it's all integrated, and then I would pour it over my herbs in the ice cube trays. A couple other things that we have done. So these are, let me stop the screen share for this last little bit too. These are some little grape tomatoes that we grew, right? And I dehydrated them. But before I dehydrated them, I took this spray bottle when they were still all wet, and I had them all laid out on the rack. And I had put 3 drops of oregano in this whole thing. And so I just misted them, turned them over, misted them. And so now I've got these great little dried tomatoes, right? And they've got oregano on them. So these are good to use pretty quickly, just like on salads or even just as snacks. Or they can be put into a jar like this covered in oil. And then you've got your own homemade sun-dried tomatoes to add into different recipes and things like that. Oh, the last thing I was going to talk with you guys about today is this is something else that I do, and I use this daily. This is where I've taken about 6 lemons and squeezed the juice out. And I've also taken about 6 or 8 inches of ginger and blended that all up in the blender. And then I add a couple drops of, actually when this was full, it was 4 drops of lemon oil and 2 drops of ginger oil. So I got more boost and boosted up the ORAC score. And I use this concentrate in my water. So instead of every single day me having to go, oh, get the lemon oil, get the ginger oil, and squeeze a lemon and put it into my water, I just have this concentrate. You can see I've been using it up this week, right? I just have this concentrate, and I'll measure out a tablespoon. I'll put it in my 16-ounce water bottle, shake it all up, and then I've got some really nice lemon ginger water to start my day. So I hope this is super helpful. I'm excited to share with you guys the next time. I've got some, we just harvested 6 bags of kale, you guys, 6 bags of kale. So excited to share with you about making kale chips. Like if that's something that you're buying at the store anyway, then why not learn how to make your own, right? And by using something like this, we can add some fun flavors to those. So we'll talk about those next time. And what else was going to say that we were going to talk about next time? Oh, we're going to cover doing some simple salad dressings that don't have a lot of sweeteners and extra calories and things in them, just using, you know, raw and natural things. And I'm going to talk with you guys about some soups too. So stay tuned for parts 2 and for parts 3.